Welcome to hour number 2, live right here on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie, I am Ben. It is Combine Week in Indianapolis, but the guys aren't even working out yet. They're barely taking measurements in Indy. It is also an important week, not just for the prospects looking to take that next leap into the National Football League, but because all of the National Football League convenes in one place. They all get together, and every burning question you have for these clubs about their offseason plans, their expectations for the upcoming year, can be answered in one spot. And DRS, we have so many headlines and storylines and sound bites to go through and react to here to start off this second hour.
Yeah, fantastic. We love the Combine, heating it up. It's like the new year has started in the NFL. So many exciting things will happen over the next couple months, which doesn't really include the Combine. I like free agency much more. I like the draft process much more than this. I just don't like the Combine. Let's all work out. But if you are one of the prospects, you do get to show up. You get a nice little hoodie. You probably get a nice pair of shorts. And, you can go home and say, hey, buddy, look, I went to the Combine back in 2025.
Some great swag, no doubt about it. You can certainly count on that inside Lucas Oil Stadium. You can also count on big news from Combine Week. Let's start in Cincinnati, although it was in Indy. Duke Tobin, who is their acting GM of sorts, who has been there for a very, very long time, addressed the offseason plans for Cincinnati. We have heard from the Bengals. Their indication is they want to pay everybody. They want to keep T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson and MarrChase all happy, paid, and in-house. And they laid out how exactly they would do that, including DRS, making MarrChase, after a Triple Crown season, the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Donnie, I think it's fair to say you've been critical of the Bengals' agenda when it comes to finances in off seasons past. Do you believe this year they'll fork up the money?
Let's use analogies here, which I like to use. Back maybe a decade ago, you could have bought Bitcoin for like $1 a Bitcoin, right? And let's just say somebody told you, hey, look, I think this is the next great thing here in the crypto market. Even if you don't understand it, go out and buy yourself 10 or 20 of these things. You just hold on to it for about 15 years. Ooh, what a great investment that was, because Bitcoin is selling between 75,000 to 100,000, whatever it might be. You say, well, Donnie, where are you going with this? Hear me out on the Cincinnati Bengals. What if I would have told you, which I did, a year and a half ago, hey, it's a great investment. We know the cap's going up. Damn, we got such a good wide receiver that we drafted in this organization named T. Higgins. We need to make him part of our future. Nona goes, nah, let's wait on this one. All right, let's fast forward again. Boy, MarrChase might be the best wide receiver in football. We got a chance to sign him before he can actually get to those free agent years. It's going to save us a lot of money and wrap him up as a core piece of our future. And the Brown family goes, I think we should wait on one. Or how about Joe Burrow? Let's hold off a little bit and say, you know what? We could probably save a little bit of money, but no, let's hold off because we have to pay more money than any quarterback is going to make on the open market here. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's great that your general manager, player, director, personnel, whatever it might be, saying, we'd love to sign these guys. Maybe the stupidest game plan we've ever seen of how you're supposed to tie up your core guys. You're supposed to come to them before they actually have a chance to get close to free agency and say, we know how good you are. We're going to pay you not market rate, but close to it here so we can extend you for 6 to 7 years and everybody's happy and we go on winning. Not wait till the last minute when the prices are absolutely skyrocketing to then start saying, sure, let's pay MarrChase more money than any wide receiver non-quarterback has ever got. And then T. Higgins goes, all right, cool. Make me the second most now at this point. Like, oh, how did we get to that point? Because you didn't sign the guy, you idiots in Cincinnati.
Yes, incredibly idiotic, because what Duke Tobin just said is idiotic. Last year, MarrChase was entering his 4th year of his NFL career. On your rookie contract, when you're a first-round pick, it is a 5-year deal, 4-year deal with a 5th-year team option that the team needs to indicate entering your 4th season if they are going to pick up. Of course, since he said we are going to pick up MarrChase. So you have him under contract for 2 years. You could have made him, if you did this shrewdly and with some anticipation, the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history before the Vikings paid Justin Jefferson, allowed Minnesota to set market value, and you could have had MarrChase balanced out with the largest contract at the time over the final 2 years of his discounted rookie deal. Instead, you had a pissed-off MarrChase who went out there and said, you're going to have to pay me now with a Triple Crown season, leading the NFL in receptions, 127, receiving yards, 1,708, and receiving touchdowns at 17. So now you're going to have to pay MarrChase. T. Higgins, as Donnie said, is going to say, well, then you got to make me the second highest paid or at least top 5. So now you're going to need to fork over a ton of money there. And then Trey Hendrickson, who just led the NFL in sacks and finished runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year, is going to be like, and where exactly is my money?
Yep.
And Jermaine Pratt, who has been the defensive leader for 6 years, who has also sneakily requested a trade, is going to be like, okay, so like, where is my money? And you paid Joe Burrow at the time to make him the highest paid quarterback in the history of the NFL. It is idiotic. If Donnie and I can have these conversations as sports talk show hosts on a Wednesday morning, then you better believe there should be people in the front office in Cincy that had these conversations 3 years ago.
Exactly. And that's the whole crux of the argument. It's like sometimes the fans and people outside the organization understand better what the organization is trying to do. But once again, the NFL is one of the only institutions where you can run your team into the ground. You be as cheap as you want. You will always be profitable no matter what product that you put out on the field. Would anybody have faulted? Like, honestly, if Cincinnati came out last year and was like, you know what? We can't afford both of these wideouts. We're probably going to trade MarrChase. And the fans will be upset and they go, look, we're going to get 2 first-rounders. We'll draft another wide receiver high. Hopefully it works out. We can try again at this. But the fact of the matter is, this team didn't make the playoffs last year. And you already have the highest paid quarterback in football. And then you're going to say, we're going to possibly reset the market at wide receiver and also at defensive end. Understanding that your defense was epically bad last year. And you say, okay, what are we missing? A lot of pieces. We're going to triple the salary for our defensive end and then still try to go out and hire pieces to add to the defense at linebacker in the secondary. Then on offense, boy, we could use some offensive linemen here. No, we're resetting the market at multi. You can't run an organization like this. And also, it's not as if there's no salary cap and you go like, they have the richest owner in sports. He will figure it out. They have the cheapest owner in sports that's now trying to wrap his head around. Do you remember, like, I'm never going to change the name of my stadium, even though I can get $25 or $30 million a year because my dad's name is on the stadium. And then Joe Burrow goes like, you're going to have to pay me. They go, oh, sorry, Dad, sold out the pay core. So I don't know what they're going to sell off now just to try to avoid, to try to get Higgins and or Chase. It's just bad all the way. It didn't have to be this way, is the point Ben and I are trying to make.
For sure. And Donnie, there are some NFL franchises run by ownership groups that are completely tied to said NFL franchise. The Hallison-McCaskey family, of course, in Chicago. The Brown family now for the Bengals. Mike Brown wasn't a successful businessman that had billions of dollars and said to himself in 1992, let me buy the Bengals. His father founded the organization and handed it to him. That's not necessarily the best recipe for success or maybe the most shrewd financial wizard that you will see. And now Cincy needs to negotiate all of this to get the right deals in place. Donnie, on Super Bowl week, Travis Kelsey told everybody, I'm fired up. I still got a lot of legs left in this football life. I'm coming back. And then the Chiefs lost in their pursuit for history in winning 3 consecutive Lombardi trophies. And then on his podcast with his brother Jason, said, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to kick the can down the road and really reflect on my career and this season. Yesterday, KC's GM Brett Veach telling reporters in Indianapolis, we expect Travis Kelsey to return and be fired up to play football in 2025. Do you think he will?
Yes, and I do think that they're back channeling each other at this point by saying, you know what, I'm reaching out to the agent, to the player. What are the vibes here? Like, you know what, he's probably 50-50. We're looking to come back. And, of course, Veach isn't going to go up there and be like, you know what, we're in salary cap purgatory. I actually hope he doesn't come back next year. They're never going to say that. You want your superstars back in the fold. It's better for your team, and they hope he comes back invigorated for another season in 2025.
More NFL headlines from Indianapolis. Up next on the early line. So many NFL headlines from Indianapolis during Combine Week around the National Football League. DRS, we continue to dive through the biggest of them, and we'll reflect to plenty. The Cleveland Browns general manager, Andrew Berry, saying yesterday, despite his superstar defensive lineman and pass rusher, Myles Garrett, demanding a trade this offseason, the Browns have no intention of actually granting that request in trading Garrett. I don't know exactly if that is going to be what happens at the end, if it is just posturing at this moment, but Andrew Berry saying the Browns are not dealing Myles Garrett at this time.
Yeah, and I guess you have to say that because there's a long time that you could sort of mend fences and come to an agreement because nobody wants to get rid of one of the best, if not the best, defensive ends in football. That's a premium position and a guy right in the middle of his prime you could use, but also using him for what is the question for Cleveland. No idea who their quarterback's going to be next year, playing in one of the toughest divisions in football. So are you more happy to say, sure, we'll pay a premium price for this defensive end and get actually no ROI back out of it in the way of wins and or playoff wins at this point? Because that's the way I view it here. If you are Cleveland, for me, you hate to trade away great players, but if it's going to get you or net you, let's just say a first-round pick, a starter, and a second and a third, you should make that move because, number one, you clear up cap space. Number two, you're not good enough to actually use that player for what he's designed to do, wreck the quarterback in the fourth quarter because you're not winning many games in the fourth quarter. It makes sense to me. I don't have any issue with the actual GM saying this because I'm sure he wants to have Myles Garrett back, and you're not going to lead off a conversation on, yep, just talk to Myles. He wants out. We agree. Like, that's not going to happen. But also understand this. Smokescreen season, which we're right in the middle of right now, starting in Combine Week, whether or not the general manager says we want to trade him or not, is not driving the price higher for Myles Garrett. If they both agree he should be gone, you're still going to get a king's ransom either way. Yeah. You don't have to play that, well, we don't want to trade him, but give me a call on the bat line here. Let's make a deal.
I think those are the more important questions, DRS. Not a matter of if, but when, first and foremost, and how much do the Browns get in return? They hold the second overall draft pick. They need to recoup a ton of draft capital that they gave up to get Deshaun Watson in that worst trade and worst deal we have ever seen in the history of the NFL. Speaking of good deals and good contract extensions, Khalil Shakir signing that with Buffalo. 4-year deal worth just a little bit more than $60 million. Not a lot to pay for who was the top target this year in Buffalo. Of course, DRS, that was the question for the Bills. Who would be that lead guy now for Josh Allen after parting ways with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis? It was Shakir this season in 2024.
Yeah, and somebody's got to step up on the outside for this team. A very good slot receiver, and you see him on a game-to-game basis. He's the most trusted target for Josh Allen. Reward the guy. They did that. It's a good move for the Buffalo Bills. They have to just keep on adding on offense here, which might include just addition by keeping some of your same players happy, like their running back who wants big-time money out there this year.
Career year for Khalil Shakir in every aspect, the most receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns in his 3 years in the National Football League. Just a couple of other headlines, DRS, that I wanted to make sure you saw yesterday. Did you see Indianapolis at home said they are going to create a quarterback competition that will be fierce for Anthony Richardson this offseason, and yet they don't have the other quarterback that's going to compete with AR under contract on the roster just yet.
Yeah, we're not handling this very well because it was apparent last year, like, brother, you don't even practice or study film. I have to bench you here. We'll make up an excuse. Hopefully he got his act together, which he did for a couple weeks. And they said, boy, he's really still inaccurate. And he said, well, how can we come up in the offseason? We want him to be our starter. Let's put a charade on it because we are going to get you the best competition while not getting you any competition. But hopefully you take our threat seriously and you work out extremely hard in the offseason, come prepared for OTAs, training camp, and the regular season. We understand one thing. This is going to end poorly in Indianapolis. I understand you took a guy with a lot of raw talent and tried to mold him. Steichen is a very good coach. It just didn't work. You're not just going to snap out of it and become a 75%, accuracy rate here and handle your business on the football field. Sometimes you just have to admit your mistake and move on, Indy, not compound that decision, which it looks like they're going to compound that decision.
Sometimes the danger of the combine can be seeing Anthony Richardson at 6'5", 245 be an absolute athletic freak and set every record for a quarterback during the combine in what he does athletically, and not making sure that you realize in his only full year as a starter in college, he had a completion percentage of 53.8%. That doesn't often get better at the next level, but not a good sign for Anthony Richardson, unfortunately, when you are in a quarterback competition against a quarterback to be named later. Speaking of quarterbacks in different situations around the NFL, Terry Fontenot, the GM of the Atlanta Falcons, saying Atlanta is more than comfortable, DRS, to have Kirk Cousins as the most expensive backup the NFL has ever seen.
Like, usually you say, like, oh, he's just saying that to get him traded. But I actually think that Atlanta is so poorly run. Like, that is the actual decision being made in the bill. Like, yeah, we got a good backup quarterback. We'll make about $35 million if we don't use him. Remember the old philosophy of, why did you draft Michael Penix here and you signed Kirk Cousins? Like, look, if Penix never plays for us, that means it was an unbelievably good decision because Kirk Cousins is that good. Like, that doesn't make any sense. How about if you got him another weapon to use if you think that quarterback is going to be good? So now you're saying, well, if Kirk Cousins makes $35 million and never sees the field, that means Penix is really good. That's not the point, Atlanta. I don't know who's running the ship down there, but my goodness, seems like an anchor pulling you underwater right now. Of course you can't have Kirk Cousins at $30+ million as your backup. Come on.
None of it made sense. Even the best case scenario of Kirk Cousins being good for 2 years and the Falcons win the NFC South and make the postseason, and then you turn it over to Michael Penix Jr. for his third NFL season at the age of 26 to see if you're going to pick up his fourth-year option. Even that best case scenario was still incredibly dumb. Oh, well, we drafted Penix. He looks pretty good, and now he's going to be our starter. Yeah, you're going to owe Kirk Cousins $40 million even if you trade the guy. 37.5 if that deal happens after June 1st. Also, some confusion around Kirk Cousins' injury status from Week 10 on yesterday. Doesn't seem to be a very seamless situation in the A. Clay Kubiak, new offensive coordinator in San Francisco, taking the official reins from Kyle Shanahan. A lot of names there. Mick Lombardi, a part of the staff. John Lynch's kid, a defensive assistant. A lot of NFL legacies up there by the Bay. We'll hear from Mike Borgonzi and Joe Shane about their draft plans for the Titans and Giants, respectively, up next. Plenty of NFL headlines from around Indianapolis during NFL Combine Week, and not just about the prospects, but really the general managers that are there in Indy sharing their draft plans and what they have ahead this offseason, including new GM in Tennessee, Mike Borgonzi, about what the Titans are planning to do, DRS, with that number 1 overall pick. Let's hear from Borgonzi yesterday.
Anytime you have number 1 pick, it's always going to be a topic of conversation. Yeah.
Has it gotten to a point where, a lot of other teams are getting very nosy, so to speak?
I would say we've had some phone calls. Yeah. I'll keep those phone calls to the vest, but we've had some phone calls, yeah.
Have you found your generational talent as you've gone through the draft?
Listen, there's a handful of players, anytime at the top of the draft that you would deem generational talents. And we certainly feel that way this year as well.
Kind of going back on his initial comments from his introductory presser, where Borgonzi said we are not going to pass up on a, quote, generational talent with the first overall pick. He didn't say quarterback. Could he have meant a generational game wrecker like Penn State's Abdul Carter, the two-way elite superstar and the Heisman Trophy winner, and Travis Hunter? We shall see. Donnie, last week we looked at the odds courtesy of our Canadian partners on the FanDuel Sportsbook of the team they expect to make that first overall selection, and it still remains the Titans as an odds-on favorite at -360.
You need a quarterback. There's a really good quarterback out there. His name is Cam Ward. You draft the number 1 overall. You try to make it work. You add some, pieces to the puzzle with wide receiver and linemen and defense. That's the way it's supposed to go. I never agree with, hey, you know what? Let's pass the buck. We'll trade out of 1. We'll trade back to 10. We'll get an offensive lineman. We'll try again next year. Maybe win too many games, 6 or 7, so we can't draft the quarterback. You're there for a reason because you're extremely poor at the quarterback position. There are good quarterbacks. You take the quarterback and you move forward. And also, it's got to be a tough job for a GM because you have to say nothing here. Like, I would almost get to the point if I was like, we settled on Cam Ward and shock the headlines, lead ESPN the next day, today we're looking more at Shedeur Sanders just to have some fun. But you saw he was answering those questions. Hey, man, is anybody calling you? Of course they're calling him. Which teams are? I can't tell you that. Do you want to draft a quarterback? We're looking at him. How about a game record? We're looking at him too. Do you see what I mean? It's such a tough spot where you're going to have to answer questions and you can't answer any of them. Just answer them open-ended all the way through. But the one thing I do know they should not be trading out of the number 1 overall pick. Pick your quarterback. You have the pick of the litter. Whatever guy you go with, have confidence and move forward as an organization.
The Titans desperately need a quarterback. Thus, you would think it would make perfect sense for that to be Miami's Cam Ward or even Shedeur Sanders if they liked what he brought to the table more. Cam Ward, even a stronger favorite now to go first overall at -155. This 2025 class of QBs, not seen, Donnie, as the strongest quarterback class in the last half decade. 3 of the last 4 drafts, we have had a generational type touted talent Trevor Lawrence in 2021, Bryce Young / maybe even C.J. Stroud in 2023, and of course Caleb Williams a season ago. Not exactly that, which has led to some speculation around that first overall pick. But you could easily say the Titans need a quarterback at 1. The Browns are in desperate need of a quarterback at 2. So are the Giants at 3, but there might not be a QB worth drafting in that spot. Here's New York's GM Joe Schoen on what the Giants' draft philosophy is going to be.
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do on that. You know, this is a great opportunity for us, obviously, in Indy, first time to get around some of the prospects and, have conversations with them, first time meeting them. So we've got a lot of work to do on, the number 3 pick. We've done a lot of work throughout the fall on the college prospects, but this phase of the calendar is, getting to know who they are as people, what the fit's going to be, and then obviously free agencies before the draft. So 2 weeks from now, the roster will look different. So we know we have an idea of, 3 to 5 players, 6 players, 7, whatever it may be, and move back scenarios. You can do that. We'll also look at, moving up if that's a possibility. So it's an exciting time for, a year for us and, a chance to make some change on the roster. And so we'll look at all different, scenarios.
DRS, for most GMs, they don't say a whole heck of a lot. Joe Schoen certainly does. Some of that was the behind-the-scenes camera look during off-season Hard Knocks, but just pretty much spelled out all in every single possibility the Giants are undertaking this offseason.
Exactly, and it's all going wrong because they won a game late in the season where they possibly should be drafting number 1 overall and hold all of the cards. For me, the Giants, he said the key word, trade back. Like, Abdul Carter is a fantastic football player, but look at the roster there. They signed a high-priced guy who they traded for last year in Burns, and then Thibodeau on the opposite side. It's almost like they shouldn't even use him as like an embarrassment of riches. Maybe go with Travis Hunter, but they need a quarterback, and they're not in position right now to get a quarterback. Disaster class by the Giants front office this year.